My name is Mareva Lindo.
Hi, I'm Genevieve Koester, originally Genevieve Harrison.
And yeah, we're going to kick things off strong with a little Money in Both Pockets, which I believe is from Illinois fiddler Jess Abbott. All right. Doing a lot of things here, bear with me. Okay, I have got it under control. Here we go. Nope, see, that's not it. There we are. All right. So people are just coming into the waiting room. So if I'm pausing in the middle of what I'm saying, it's because I'm constantly having to admit people in. So again, thank you for bearing with me. It's been a lot of work. We're really excited to share this with you.
Yeah.
Welcome,
welcome, and thank you, Mareva, for doing all the tech. Really been, we made it available not only on Facebook, but on Zoom as well. And that was no small feat. And I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah. And I hope this is going live on Facebook right now, but if it isn't, heck, it's live on Zoom and I'm recording it and it'll all be fine. So, and you're all here. Thank you for joining us here. So, for the past year, I've been studying the traditional music of Illinois with Genevieve, thanks to the Illinois Arts Council's Master and Apprentice program. This is the second year that we've gotten to do this together. And it was not without its challenges. Wouldn't you say, Jenna?
Yeah. So we've had a great time working together. It's been absolutely a wonderful experience, but it's been best of times, worst of times, because we started in 2019, got to have a totally normal, great, like all cylinders functioning year. And then we got to have this year. Basically, succeed against all odds, I would say. And especially with I will say it's a little disappointing not getting to have the final performance in person, but on the bright side, we got to do a really high quality recording, like video recording session. We get to share everything and have it archived and have a better time capsule of it. So it's been a really great year learning to work in a different way.
Yeah. So in order, as Jenna kind of touched on, like in order to kind of give you the best experience possible, we thought about it a lot. We safely pre-recorded kind of several chunks that you're going to be seeing today of what, of performance and workshop with the help of some videographers. So so the next thing that we're going to do is a little bit of a conversation between me and Genevieve about the legacy that brought her to this music. And I think there'll be a little bit of something in there, that covers stuff for people who aren't already super knowledgeable, as well as some stuff for people who, are already quite familiar, which I know this is that mixed group of people who who know a lot about Illinois music and some who might not know as much. So we wanted to kind of be able to cater to both of those groups of people and share this heritage and this legacy with folks. It's really our goal to like introduce this to people as much as possible. So that's kind of our goal in putting this together, as well as to, later on in the program, be able to present a really exciting masterclass that is a rare experience. So that's what's going to follow. After the workshop, we'll have a little live Q&A moment, which is where this live idea came in. Instead of just like putting this, pre-recorded thing out there, we wanted to be able to interact with you all. And I see you all interacting. That's great. Interacting with each other is great too. But so we'll have a little Q&A after the interview. We'll have a little Q&A. We'll go into the workshop portion next, and then we'll have some Q&A after that too. And and then we'll kind of have both right before the interview, right before I start that, and then at the end, we're going to play a few more tunes and a couple songs that we worked on this year. So kind of intersperse those throughout, pepper them throughout. So the workshop, just to tell you a little bit more about that, the workshop will focus on Garry Harrison's original fiddle tune, Mule Team. It's a very popular tune in the old time scene. Jenna's going to break it down in a way that is not often played, but it's the way that it was played on the album Red Prairie Dawn in GCGD tuning, and kind of break down some of her dad's like signature style things that he would do and that you can kind of hear in that tune. So yeah, anything else that I'm missing there, Jenna?
No, it's just, it was kind of ironic that we had really done a lot to work on fiddle tunes last year, and we had set our sights on working on more songs this year. And then immediately the pandemic hit, and singing together in any approximation, close to each other was the least safe thing that anyone could do. So we did really succeed at preparing and learning and working on a few songs. And the last thing, the last number in this performance is I Hear the Low Wind Sweeping, which is a sort of new arrangement for just the two of us, and that I learned from the singing of Joe Burgess, and that's in the Dear Old Illinois collection. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's songs we worked on this year sort of apart, but that we really couldn't figure out a really satisfactory way to share, but that, that doesn't mean we won't in the future. So we did the ones that we felt that would be most exciting to share today. But that was something that was a change. We'll say that. It was a change. And a funny thing that we were trying to focus on that this year. Yeah. So yeah, just if you're watching on Facebook, make sure to put any questions or comments in the chat there, where my partner Jay will be watching and sort of moderating and relaying those questions to us, like during the interview portion and the workshop portion. And if you're watching on Zoom, make sure to have the chat box open and put your questions and comments there, where Jenna and I can respond to them directly. And then if you're, worried about like the streaming quality, we're doing everything we can to make that as high quality as possible. And for you, if you can use an Ethernet cable, that will help. If you can close additional windows and applications, that will help. I think that covers it. Anything else? Any questions before we just dive in?
We have so many great, wonderful, positive, love comments. We have only good comments in the chat. So thank you everyone for making wonderful chat comments. No questions yet, and I think we're ready to go.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, okay, so I will, just before we dive into the interview, we'll just play you a couple more Illinois tunes. So here will be a medley of Indian Ate the Woodchuck from Harry Ely, and Sugar in My Coffee from Harvey Pappy Taylor. I got this time. We got this. I got it. let's start with a little history. You come from a very musical family on both sides. Could you talk a little bit about your family's musical heritage?
Sure. So my father, Garry Harrison, is a native of Charleston, Illinois, which is about an hour past Champaign-Urbana, south, and was, grew up there. His father and his grandfather all played the fiddle, and just that was his first exposure to old time music, and the fiddle specifically, and the banjo. And my mom is from South Bend, Indiana, and very classically trained, plays piano and organ and violin and viola. And so they met through old time music at the Indiana Fiddlers Gathering. And they each, my mom can read music and write music and very theory trained, and my dad only plays by ear, by tradition. This is a very oral tradition that's passed down only by sound, and so they each had a strong affinity for the other's talents that was very different. And and so my dad and his brothers Steve and Terry Harrison, and their really good friend John Bishop and Chirp Smith, and all, there's just kind of a group formed, and they would get together as friends, and then also play in a string band together, and that became the Indian Creek Delta Boys in the 70s. And then the rest is history.
Your grandparents were musical as well, right?
My dad's parents, yes, were very much in the old time and country tradition of fiddling and playing for dances. And my grandma Pauline, which is my middle name, was the singing cowgirl at the radio station in Tuscola, Illinois. So they, just like my parents, were, and then my mom's side of the family, my grandpa Bert was a Lutheran minister. So it was very much written, read church, religious music. That was kind of their first exposure. And he started a congregation in South Bend. And my grandma Genevieve, I got my grandma's names, Genevieve and Pauline. They, she played the violin classically and piano and sang, and they were very musical families, both of them, but in very different ways.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how the Harrison portion of the Dear Old Illinois collection came about? What was the impetus to start collecting?
So my grandpa Cliff Harrison, my dad's dad, played the fiddle, but he passed away when my dad was, I think, 20 years old, and so he had learned a bit of music, at home, but then just feeling that loss and wanting to keep on playing tunes and learning from other people, he and my uncles, just through friends of friends, kind of rambled around central and southern Illinois, trying to seek out old timers that played the fiddle and the banjo, just specifically to learn tunes, to learn new tunes, and to keep building and growing in their repertoire of that kind of music. And also it ended up being a really good serendipity, and it led to the Dear Old Illinois collection, which is actually two collections. It's the Harrison collection, which is instrumental string band music, and then the collection of David S. McIntosh, who was a professor at SIU, who was really focused on ballads and poetry and vocal music. So the two collections together have been really well regarded as a good, well-rounded collection together. But for my part, the Harrison side was just, the goal was to learn tunes and on the fiddle and the banjo and guitar. And for learning purposes, they brought along recording, cheap old tape recorders. And even before they started to play music, got to know people, got to be friends with them, established a rapport, and then would, graciously ask permission to record them and to share the music with, for the senior generation to learn to share the music with them.
So would you say that the way that Dear Old Illinois came about is kind of the same origin for the Indian Creek Delta Boys?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they played, the Indian Creek Delta Boys played for square dances and, gigs and different, they were very much interested in playing gigs. And so to keep learning more tunes made it even more fun to play them out for audiences.
It bears noting that source musicians in the Harrison collection are all white of British, Irish, and European descent. There are some black source musicians in the Macintosh portion of the collection, but it's also predominantly white. The Gerald, Illinois collection is a rich resource, but it's also not comprehensive of the traditional music of Illinois, and that's not necessarily what they set out to do in collecting it, right?
Sure. Exactly as you said. I think sometimes there's a conception that this was a superimposed grant project that could have been tasked with gathering all the ethnicities of the entire state of Illinois and capturing their music. And that's just, it. First of all, it wasn't superimposed. It was completely just, as I mentioned before, done through friends of friends and through, you know, social circles in that way, and through a lot of effort, you know, to seek out senior musicians. But it's a very comprehensive collection of one specific type of old time music in Illinois, and that is, I'm happy to acknowledge that and talk about it. And you know, I would love nothing more to then, you know, dig deeper into, and I know people have other ethnicities of quote unquote old time music or traditional music. So yeah, this is a very specific lens that the entire collection was gathered through. I also want to say, we do know that some of the second generation sources for the fiddle tunes in Gerald, Illinois, the fiddler that my dad learned it from a traveling African American player that came through town, and you know, was just a very brief encounter, not somebody that they got to know very well, but because like the Coles County Fairs in Charleston, and that brought a lot of, you know, traveling different types of attractions through. And so there is the sense that there is a presence there, but unfortunately we just don't ever get to know you know, the real source of, and we don't get to, it's unfortunately not, we're not able to connect those dots in that way.
There's more work to be done.
Yeah.
It would be great to learn about the broader and deeper roots of this music, for sure. What are you doing to make this music more inclusive today?
I think the first thing anybody that is situated within the old time or bluegrass or any kind of traditional music community, I think the first thing that I'm trying to do is just be open to having conversations about how to make it more equitable and more inclusive. And even if those conversations are a little bit uncomfortable, I think it's important that they're not to be avoided. So first of all, just acknowledging that. And then second of all, we have a Garry Harrison Memorial Scholarship Fund in memoriam of my dad, because he was always very, very much a generous and open musician and person within the old time community. And so we've funded scholarships for people to attend the Bluff Country Gathering in Minnesota. And then most recently we worked with the Old Town School to fund teenager, like 11 to 14-year-olds to attend their summer fiddle camp. And you know, that draws a really interesting like cross-section of the Chicago youth community. And I think that is just the biggest way to keep this music going, honestly, and to make it branch out outside of the you know, the kind of for lack of a better word, traditional music communities, or the people that are already, you know, in and amongst this kind of music.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about your dad, Garry Harrison, who was an incredible player, collector, tune writer, and a huge influence on the old time community. Do you want to talk about when and how you started playing music with your dad?
Sure. I did take Suzuki violin when I was from like ages 4 to 8, and complained every single minute of it because although I could sense that I enjoyed it, it was a very classical music track, and I was like, not for me. It's not for me. So quit that altogether, dabbled with piano here and there, and then probably in junior high I started playing acoustic guitar, and then that was how my dad and I would spend time together, as he would play fiddle tunes and I would play backup guitar. And just, you know, I mean, that's very much on brand for old time music. Whenever my dad and my uncles would go to visit senior musicians, they would play guitar. Like they would play banjo, they would back up the senior musicians and they would play the fiddle tunes for them. So not only to learn the tunes and to listen to them, but to like make that kind of connection and play with them, not just sit and listen to them, but to feel like they were all, engaging in the same space and same activity. So that's kind of, and then, once I decided to pick up the fiddle in my early 20s, I realized that by playing backup guitar, I had heard all the tunes, and it was a really easy transition to kind of get them in my hands and onto the fiddle.
Do you want to talk about some of the original tunes that your dad wrote?
Well, from an early age, he was always making up songs and ditties and just goofing off, basically. And all of his friends and, friends and relatives will say that about him. And I think, like, the very late 90s, he released the Red Prairie Dawn album, which has become, a really favorite of the old time community and even crossed over into like some jazz communities. And, so it was an album of all of his, all but 4 of them were original fiddle tunes that he had composed. And you'll hear a few of those in our jam session at some point. And so, yeah, I think that was one thing that got the old time music community really excited, was to have new tunes to play, because this is always, it's a traditional kind of canon of tunes, and sure, everyone puts their own spin on everything, but it's always really exciting when fiddlers compose tunes in the style of old time music and kind of keeps it fresh in that way. And so, he just has made up some tunes that people really love to play.
What was it like to learn from your dad and also to learn some of his tunes?
In the very beginning of me expressing, or showing, I would say, when I pursued him to teach me another tune, okay, I was here in Chicago in college or shortly thereafter. And so I would, call him on the phone or email him and say like, okay, he would send me a tune on email, like a sound file. And then I would like call him on the phone when I learned it and play it back to him, like pen pal learning, a little bit like that at the very beginning when I was like rough and not ready for prime time. And then, so that was kind of how it all started. And then it became clear to him and to me that I was really serious about pursuing it and not just, kind of messing around, but not really interested in, taking it to the next level with my playing and everything like that. So he would very much just show me tunes and I would observe. It was not like all of the workshops that I give are 10 times more instruction than I've received on a lot of the tunes. And I break things down based on observation of how my dad played them and demonstrated them to me. But it's not as if he broke it down into a workshop or anything like that. It was more us playing tunes together, us both playing on fiddle, him playing on fiddle, me guitar, just kind of spending time, playing music together. Was the way that I learned. And he, first and foremost, taught me the dear old Illinois tunes. Like, taught me the tunes from, Pappy Taylor, who was a huge musical influence on him, who's very well represented in dear old Illinois, and, Harry Ely and Jess Abbott and all the people that he had the closest, personal relationships with. So he started there. He didn't start, even though I was playing... started learning like 3 years after the Red Prairie Dawn album came out. He didn't start there. He was like, no, we're gonna go back to the beginning and learn all the old timey tunes. And so I didn't actually. I mean, again, he didn't play the Red Prairie tunes often at all, and so I've had to do a lot of like detective work and knowing based on his playing, piecing things together, definitely what's happening like on the fiddle and with, with the left hand, like on the bow and the left hand. So
it helps that you have a very similar style. You play in the Garry Harrison school of fiddling.
I definitely completely zeroed in and observed every single thing he did on the fiddle and made it my business to know all of that and to ask questions whenever I didn't, whenever I felt like I wasn't getting something or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what you bring to a tune that maybe you never learned directly from your dad, is years of learning and watching his playing intently.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do some show and tell. Do you want to tell me about some of these instruments we have here?
So we've said that my dad collected tunes, made up his own tunes, played the fiddle, and along with the guitar and other instruments. So you said earlier that the dear old Illinois Harrison collection and the Indian Creek Delta Boys were very much like on the same flight pattern. And another thing that was in that same wavelength was building fiddles and repairing fiddles, because you can't play, it's no fun to play on an instrument that's no fun to play. And so Pappy Taylor, my cousin Cliff Harrison, who's a really talented fiddler and guitar player and banjo player, he has the original musical instrument repair sign that hung outside of Harvey, Pappy Taylor's shop near Effingham, Illinois. And so that's a really special heirloom that we have in our family. Oh. And my cousin Cliff built a fiddle start to finish with my dad. So where this is all like, so Pappy Taylor, built basses and built, stand-up wooden bass fiddles and did all kinds of repairs on all kinds of instruments. Odie Griffith is another source in the collection that had a music store and did tons of repairs. And that was the first place that my dad learned all the nuts and bolts of what goes into fixing a fiddle, to making it from scratch, to just everything about how to do that. And these 3 fiddles and the odd instrument in the back, which I'll get to later, are all ones that he made from scratch. And on these, he even made all the fittings, like the pegs on these 2. You can see these 2 on the side are modeled after the Hamblin family of Indiana, and they only have the top 2 corners, and they don't have points down here, which is atypical.
And what's that called?
The 2-pointer?
The 2-pointer.
The 2-pointer, yes.
It's called the 2-pointer.
This is my 2-pointer that my dad built for me, and this is his 2-pointer that he'd be mortified and embarrassed that I'm showing anyone, because he like stripped the whole finish off. He's like, I don't like it. I gotta redo it. And he didn't get to redo it yet. So, and then this, if you can go close in here, is a little, there's a cool little face there that is kind of a caricature of all the old timers that were just hilarious, pointy, it's just a caricature of an old person that they would, meet and become friends with. And my mom always tells the story that when my dad would ask her on a date, you're like, do you want to go on a date? And she's like, yeah, sure. And then they'd go see some old person in their home and just generally have a weird time, and then, get to know them and then play music. And it ended up being really fun, but not your typical first date.
Yeah. And what's that called?
The caricature is called Finny Binkley, which Chirp Smith knows all about. Anybody out there should ask Chirp Smith all about that.
But you also call these old...
Oh, the general term? This specific person is Finny Binkley, but the term for hilarious old people that, teach you how to play music is boinker.
Thank you. Would you like to start telling us about this little number?
Sure. So this is an instrument of my dad's own invention of sorts. It's based on a Finnish hukanal or bowed lyre, but those have much smaller and much more dense bodies. So you can see, he took the idea of a pointless fiddle, like if you put points on it here, it would largely resemble a fiddle, made it much thicker, and then the way that you change the tone, it's bowed across here. I'll play it in a minute. Sorry. It's bowed across here, and then you change the notes as if you were putting your finger on the finger of a fiddle, like the fingerboard. instead of doing this, you reach out here. It doesn't, this instrument doesn't strictly speaking have a name, but owing to the shape and the color and the overall general appearance, we just call it the peanut. So I will now endeavor to play the peanut.
Thank you so much to Genevieve and to everyone watching, and stick around for our breakdown of Garry Harrison's Mule Team. All right. People are excited to see the peanut again, Jenna.
The one, the only.
Some for the first time, some not. Well, okay. It seems like we had a couple questions. And if others have questions now, feel free to jump in with them. Let's see. Armand asked, in case this doesn't get answered in the interview, what's a dead giveaway that someone is fiddling in the Illinois style? Is that something usually indicated by the tune they're playing, or something that's a prominent feature of the playing style? Jenna, do you want to start by answering that one?
Sure. Even though I feel like you, with an outside perspective, always answer this way better than I do. I would say, first and foremost, the most music that we play is like string band with fiddle, banjo, guitar, maybe stand-up bass, mandolin. And my favorite thing to do, and my dad's favorite thing, was to play for square dances. And, you know, it's by definition like music that has a good driving beat that can be played as basically the boombox for a square dance, a contra dance, any kind of, you know, dance like that, where there's a caller and telling people like swing your partner, Alaman left. And then, you know, basically it's dance music first and foremost, I would say that. And then the Illinois style specifically, I think I'm going to turn it over to, I'm going to phone a friend, Mareva.
Yeah, it's funny. I randomly happened to read like what might be the only interview your dad ever did in Old Time Herald. I randomly happened to look at it very recently, and he answered this question. And this question comes up a lot.
Yeah.
My dad asked this question last year. Like, people often want to know. And the way your dad answered it, I think, is the way that I think both you and I kind of would answer it, which is that there's not like one. Like each fiddler kind of has their own distinct style, like the way that, you know, that first tune that we played was from Jess Abbott. Jess Abbott has a really different style than Harvey Pappy Taylor, who you heard, you know, Sugar in My Coffee was the third tune that we played. Like, so they have a very, very different styles. Like, and they're both, you know, from downstate Illinois. So it really just depends. Sometimes it depends on how much closer they are to like Kentucky versus, you know, another part of the state, you know, that stuff really does matter. Another thing I would say is that like nowadays, Garry has so defined the way that certain tunes are played. And like that his tunes are played for sure, but that like his versions of things and his versions of things with the Indian Creek Delta Boys, and you know, that everyone in the Deltas, not just him, but like the Indian Creek Delta Boys versions of things, I think have these really defining, you know, qualities that have carried on, you know, that people know those versions of things more than they'll know like the source recording version of things. And that Garry wouldn't play it necessarily in a way that Harvey would have played a recording. Like his version of, you know, Devil in a Haystack is not how Harvey Pappy Taylor plays Devil in a Haystack. It's how Garry plays it. And so something that I think we haven't talked about enough, and that this does give a good opportunity to talk about, is that like he kind of defined this body of music simply by his playing of it in person, you know, on albums and in, you know, settings where he would, you know, meet people and share the tunes because people heard his versions of things. So he like has a really distinct style of his own, which I would say probably I would guess, and I would be curious what you would think, is owed more to like his learning from his own dad than like from any other specific other old time fiddler, but then piecing things together that he learned from people like Harvey, who would play for dances and the fast speed, stuff like that. And just like learning like specific bowings that like you'll hear a few things coming up that like he pieced things together from, you know, a patchwork of different places. But Gary's dad was like a widely known fiddler. Yeah.
And also it's not, you know, people aren't in a vacuum. I would also very much interject that there isn't a fiddler in this genre that doesn't love Kenny Baker or want to be Kenny Baker. So there's a lot of like, my dad's fiddling, I think, is unique because he also incorporates some bluegrass and some different genres outside of just, you know, the tunes that he learned firsthand from the source musicians. Like, just like you said, his style was inclusive of other influences as well, because he was, you know, by definition, the next generation of the fiddler in that tradition, you know.
Yeah, and then related to that question, Brendan Carson asked, were there particular few old timers that you think were especially influential on the Harrison fiddle aesthetic? And it's kind of like related to what we've been talking about, but do you want to mention a few, Genevieve?
Well, you already said Pappy Taylor, and you know, my dad had a picture of Pappy with 9 candles on a birthday cake celebrating his 90th birthday with my dad, you know, and my mom. And so I think that was just the closest personal friend to him, you know, was Pappy Taylor. I think that would be the one. And also, you know, Pappy lived on even into my lifetime, whereas a lot of the other people didn't. And so, you know, I was fortunate enough just when I was a tiny, tiny child to spend a little bit of time with him too. So.
Yeah, and then like I would also say like that, like Noah Beavers and Jess Abbott, there's certain fiddle bowings that sometimes will appear in Gary tunes from their tunes.
Sure.
So they have a distinct different style from Pappy that like they'll also, I feel like those are 3 that appear a lot, like aesthetic wise. Yeah.
As a kind of opposite bookend, I would say one person who is hugely influential and who's documented in the collection is Harry Jones, but he died before you know, my dad and my uncles, and he was a contemporary of Pappy Taylor and played with Pappy a lot, and we have home recordings of them, but they never got to spend any time together. So there's always, you know, it's like you said, it's a potpourri. It's not only one thing.
Yeah. And then Brendan asked, do you have recordings of Gary's dad or grandfather playing?
We do. Cliff Harrison, can I call you up on stage?
The living Cliff Harrison, the namesake of Cliff Harrison.
Yeah.
Howdy.
Hi.
Yeah, it's true. There are a couple of very scratchy recordings captured from a radio broadcast. I assume it was WDZ in Tuscola, Illinois, where my namesake, Cliff Harrison, played with a band, including a few other locals. And they go through a couple of tunes, and there's some really interesting old-fashioned advertisements read over the air, and but they're very scratchy though, and it's about as faint as you could possibly imagine a recording being, but they do exist, and yeah. So
are those from the 40s, or did you say?
You know, that's a good question. I would guess something more like maybe 50s or 60s, but yeah. I really don't know. Cool. Yeah, not sure.
I think 50s probably would be about do it.
Got to follow up with you about that, Cliff.
Yeah, I'll do some digging.
Well, thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions that I've seen. So I think that might cover it for the interview. Yeah. That means that we're about ready to dig into Mule Team. So yeah, we won't give too much of an introduction to this because we do talk about it in the video. But yeah, so this is exciting. I'm excited for the fiddlers out there as well as anyone who just knows or loves this tune. If you don't, it might be interesting to you. I hope it would be. It's pretty nerdy. But if not, it's also a really exciting portion that comes right after this as well. So it's like in about 20 minutes, but we'll play the tune. Then Jenna's gonna break it down for about, yeah, go ahead.
One more thing. Just want to give credit to the other people that you see in the videos that are playing along with us, which is my husband, Smith Koester, is playing banjo, and we recorded at his Barnstorm Mastering studio here in Chicago. And Jay DeRogers is playing mandolin and or guitar in the band lineup settings. Those are the other two people and the location where we recorded.
Thank you to the location and the band that you're about to see, well, throughout the rest of today. Okay, so I think we'll kick it off with Mule Team again. Let me get this share thing down. I got it now, guys. I promise. Let's talk about this tuning.
So, first and foremost, you may have noticed, the seasoned experts at home may have noticed that the guitar was playing uncapoed in C formation in the key of C. And the fiddle was playing basically in D formation. And that's because standard fiddle tuning is E, A, D, G, from highest to lowest. This fiddle is tuned. Here, I have a handy reminder because it's such an insane, wonderful tuning. And I put this on the case of the fiddle so I don't accidentally pick it up thinking it's in standard tuning. So this is Mule Team tuning. Welcome everyone to this special tuning for this special tune. So highest to lowest, it's D, G, C, G. So D, G, C, G. Now, you don't have to go to this tuning. This is basically D tuning. It's if you take standard tuning, E, A, D, and then take the G string up to A. That's the standard high bass tuning for the key of D. This is that same thing taken down a full step. So it's D tuning in the key of C for the fiddle. So that's the first step to achieving the true Mule Team sound is this crazy tuning.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. And it works in D too, but this is what we're going to be showing today. So.
It's a special sauce.
Yeah.
Shall we start by breaking down the A part?
Sounds good. Breaking down the A part. I'll probably just play it all the way through slowly and then come back to any difficult parts. So, okay. So here's the whole A part slowed down so you can see what's happening. You notice at the very end there's a bridge into the B part. The first time through it ends with that closed phrase and repeats, and then the second time so it's the second time through the A part, it has that bridge down into the B part. Now that you've got the gist of it, I'll play it just a couple clicks faster, so at sort of a medium pace, so you can all play along at some point on the Zoom playback.
Do you have any specific notes on the A part?
I think the phrasing on at the phrase ending. So it's kind of a little bit of a syncopated, and if you try to bow every note, it'll be too much. So down, 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 up, up, down. And that gives it the really kind of ragtimey, syncopated feel. And then also, maybe at the top of the tune, I'm droning pretty hard on the top two strings together, so the melody is, which is fine, but it really what we're working towards is playing both strings at the same time. The whole time you're hitting those notes, because that has a really nice full sound. Drone.
And the bowing on the beginning of the A is pretty key as well, right?
So it like a lot of great old time tunes, the first note comes before the downbeat. It anticipates and it comes in early, and you do want to not too much, but slide your finger into position just to give it an oomph sound, not an actual slide or two different notes or anything like that. It's just your two things. It's functional because it helps you find your intonation when you're, so there's like a really practical reason, but also the sound and the effect of sliding your finger into position gives it more emphasis to really like kick off the first note of the tune. So I'll give you a anti-example, like. So I'm doing two things. I'm not anticipating the beat and I'm not sliding my finger. And that's what that would sound like. So there's actually two things. You're lifting up and replacing and sliding your finger. So that's a really important distinction I want to make is I'm not sliding from the finger back and forth. It's sliding from an open string. So the pickup is, so you play the open string first, and then hammer your finger on and slide it into position. So, and it's very small, very compact. It's not a lot of, there's not a lot of space between the open string and the first finger, but it needs to be there. If you start with your finger already placed, it has a totally different sound and kind of rings false. So instead of, you really want to hit that open string before you place your first finger.
Yeah, and the particular places where you are shuffling and where you're not shuffling are also important here.
Yeah.
Very key.
Yeah. So there are specific kind of slurring notes together on one bow stroke in a set pattern. So a shuffle bow is just that comes and goes. That's peppered throughout the tune as kind of a connector to other more unique bowings, I would say. So slur, slur, slur. Slur, slur, slur. Shuffle, shuffle. No, slur, shuffle. So it's like you're toggling back and forth between slurring notes on like 2 or 3 notes on the left hand on the same bow stroke, and then back to shuffle to kind of connect those bowing patterns. So one of the slurring bow patterns that defines the very first phrase the very first line that you hear is, so I've made a big deal about the first note and the finger sliding in, but another really important thing is this, the fourth finger, the moving between the third and the fourth finger. Down, up, down. And there's like a down, up, pulse. Like there's like a pulse that happens that allows you to keep the up bow for a really long time. So you're kind of like punch card, like da 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 da. So if you want to just try that, is a really good set piece that the tune absolutely requires.
That's great. Do you want to break down the B part now?
Sure. I want to preempt that by saying the B part has some very Garry Harrison bowing techniques and patterns. Something that he affectionately referred to as the back bow, which I will endeavor to explain. First, let me play through the whole B part slowly so you can hear and see what's going on, and then I'll point out where it is. So we your ears should have caught. So that's a nice, always like a friendly face in the crowd when the B part, the second part of a tune, repeats something from the A part, because you just get to like plug it back in and use it again, which is great. Okay, so they have the same phrase ending is what I'm trying to say. Okay. All right.
So you mentioned a very signature Garry Harrison bowing. That's part of this B part, right?
Yes. It's affectionately in our family called the back bow, which is not a technical term. It's just a set bowing pattern wherein, shuffle bow is like long, short, short, long, short, short, long, short, short. It's a very specific bowing pattern, and this breaks that instead of it breaks the melody of a tune into couplets, so it slurs 2 notes at a time on each bow stroke. So it really has the ability to give a specific sound and like have a tune have a really different kind of logic and rhythm to it. I'll start off first, even before the back bow. The very first notes. This is like, if you think of the word like honk honk, like this is like it's have your first finger down and you're toggling back and forth between the first and second finger. It's not. It has a completely different sound and feel when you remove the first finger and just slide the finger back and forth. For whatever reason, it really does sound. So I'll play it. Here. So it's a really fast, like trill almost, or toggling back and forth between the first and second finger, not. That just has a completely different sound and feel to me. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important to have both fingers. So if everybody wants to try that. And again, I'm droning between the middle 2 strings the whole time, but the melody is just. Then after that phrase, we move on to the back bow, which is so. Down, down, up, up, down. So you're putting 2 notes on each 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'll play it a little faster. And it just, it's tempting to, like, shuffle bow is so much more comfortable and so much more just kind of, for whatever reason, ingrained into, like beginning old time fiddle and things like that. And even my dad acknowledged, like, the back bow feels awkward. Like, it feels really, really awkward. But at first, and then admittedly, it's taken me years to cultivate it in a way that, feels natural, can play up to speed, but then the end result really sounds unique. So that's one of the reasons I'm taking this long to talk about it. So I'll play it one more time. Same ending as the A.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the keys to unlocking like a very Garry Harrison style of playing for sure. Shall we dig into some of the variations and the tag at the end?
So I'll play no variation A part through once, just so you can hear it, and then I will break down variations. So. So there are two specific distinct variations, and here they go. Variations. Here we go. Here. Same. Variation 2. And then. So they come really early in the A phrases. So variation number 1 is, and then instead of, in place of, you play so open A or G, whatever. And then I get another pull, like up bow pulse at the end. And then instead of, so it kind of changes the following phrase after. So instead of, you don't play the, when it follows the variation, it turns into this. So it changes the rhythm significantly of the, once you start the variation, it changes the whole rest of the phrase. So I'll play the whole variation again slowly. And then the phrase continues as it would normally. Here's variation number 2. And again, once you start the variation, it kind of displaces and changes the rest of the phrase. Okay, so variation 2. So it's kind of the same phrase ending as the other variation, but it's a notier version of the first half, so. So I'll play variation number 2 from the top of the A part again. And then the phrase and the A part ends as it would. I think it's interesting because it kind of is borrowing from, it's like interchanging Lego pieces from other parts in the tune, so that it really tricks your ear into what part are we on? Wait, this variation is just another part from a different like segment of the tune. So one more time, variation 2, because it's a little notier than variation 1. So from the top.
And then is that it for variations for the tune?
For the A part, those are the 2 significant variations. And they can just be peppered in as needed, though they are like a spice, so not like every time. It gets a bit much, but so they're just to be thrown in as accents to the structural tune. Then there is in the B part, there's one variation that always is played on the very last time through the B. So it's kind of a signal for everybody listening that you're ending the tune. So let me play the B part through. So that's the very end couple of phrases is the tagline / variation in the B part. So I'll play it a little bit slower. Yes, you heard that right. It sounds a little crazy, but so the variation / tag at the end is you so play after. So now that you've got all the variations, I'll play the whole tune once through at a medium pace so you can see how they fit in.
And that's it.
And that's all she wrote.
What about the low drone? When and how should you work that one in there?
On the B part is the most obvious place, and the place where it sounds great on the back bow. Essentially the back bow section that I talked about. So that sounds great, but it's a lot to it's a lot to handle with successfully executing the back bow and keeping that note steady, or just picking out notes where you want it to accent. So yeah, that's a great choice to kind of, especially if you're playing for a dance or something. Alternatively, I think what I mostly demoed was the middle two strings droning together. You've got an octave, so you've got one on either side, and you can definitely pick or toggle between droning with the top or the bottom string.
that you?
Thank you, and thank you. Yeah, all right.
Yes, thank you, Jess.
Chance to do that in ages.
Oh, that was Jess. I know that scream. Oh, well, thank you. I don't know if I saw too many questions, but I guess feel free to just, pop on if people do have questions right now. We'll see if the fiddlers who went through that had questions as you went through, or if anyone did,
First of all, I'm dying to know if anyone retuned to this insane tuning. Or if you just did like high bass detuning. I mean, like it's all the same.
Yes. Did people do the tuning? Oh, okay. We have Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I know Jess and Brendan have some experience with this tune. Do you have any questions having watched this video?
This clarified a lot for me. I feel like it's been a while since I've tried to tackle the tune, but what a wonderful little breakdown, and so great to hear the ornaments that are like specifically used in certain ways. I love that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
I just saw someone message that Nikosi retuned too from Facebook. He was chiming in of like, tune it or lose it, people. That's right.
Yes, Nikosi Field. Just last year's Clifftop champion. So Brendan, you were saying something?
Oh yeah, just it's really helpful to have the bow breakdown. Where I feel like for me at least, it's hard to get that just from listening a lot of the time.
Thanks. I'm glad. I wasn't sure. I tried to make sense, but it's not.
I'm
glad it came through. What?
I'm so excited to know the term back bow.
Infomercial. This is not a technical term. This should not be used in any mixed company. Please do not use the term back bow. No one will know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, we dug pretty deep there. I feel like it was a good opportunity to dig into some details that you don't usually get. So I hope it was useful. And there will be a recording, so you can refer back to it, if you didn't get like tiny little details. So I guess, yeah, I don't know if there are any other questions that popped up. But are you saying that you tuned to the tuning on your mandolin or fiddle? Fiddle, okay, that would be impressive. That's great though. So I think we're a little bit later than maybe we intended to be, but that's okay. We're all here. Maybe we're on schedule. I'm not even sure. I don't know what time.
Fine. We're fine.
Oh, Emily's asked me a question. What was my favorite part of this experience? Of the experience of like this entire year, or making this this special afternoon for you all of the apprenticeship. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this year, like the next few things that we're going to share with you are like kind of like highlights, I feel like, of what we worked on, I feel like, for both of us. And I feel like getting that, like being able, like what we just shared with you has also been a highlight for me, just like getting that like super deep dive, nitty gritty breakdown of certain things. And like, once you get to know a tune, you can like play a tune like how you play a tune, right? Like things don't have to be that rigid all the time, but it's really, it's a really specific style of playing that only a few people are really like carrying on. And it's like, I get to be one of those people who are learning these really specific things. So that part is really cool. So like what we shared with you is definitely a part of that. And what we're about to share with you are like definitely some highlights from like what I learned this year, I feel like. Yeah.
I want to say ditto, and I mean that like the movie Ghost, because it's my favorite part of working in this experience and the whole, Illinois Arts Council program is that you get to really spend quality teacher-student time. And then also you get to just, I want to just to zoom out and say that like a lot of this music is shared among friends and family. So it's like the Illinois Arts Council gave us like a formal setting and a reason to get together every week, but it really, ended up just becoming friends and like, passing on music and playing together in a very social way. So, I mean, it's been really hard this year to make it work, but we safely did it. And I'm very proud of that. And last year was great. This year was great. And so I think the social and the interpersonal aspect of it is great too.
Yeah, it was cool to be able to like do it a second year to build on what we did last year. And I think we're probably going to take a year off because, circumstances are going to be fairly similar for a little while, or just we want to, give it a little time, mostly for external factors, but we fully plan on coming back to it and doing another year if we can. Because there's more. We have a list that we still haven't got to a bunch of things in the songs. So we hope to be able to share that and in person next time. So thank you for that question, Emily. Very nice question. So yeah, that's a great sort of segue into the next sort of area of the things that we want to share, which are just a few things that I learned this year that we worked on together. So yeah, so the next two tunes that we'll go into it's a medley of two cross A tunes. So the first one's going to be Leg Shy and Hey Mao. So Leg Shy is a traditional Illinois tune, and Hey Mao is a Garry Harrison tune. So I'll talk a little bit about Leg Shy, which is the first one. So Leg Shy is a tune collected from Dave Spa, who learned it from a black fiddler at a county fair. I think Genevieve might have referenced it in her interview in the conversation we had. So it's a great tune, but it's pretty disappointing not to have a name or any more information about that source fiddler that it actually came from, when this is a really rare example of an Illinois tune in this collection with clear roots in the black tradition. But it is a really great tune, so we want to share that with you. And then Genevieve, do you want to talk about Hey Mao?
Sure. So first of all, I'm always curious if people know what a Hey Mao is, because it's a very rural reference, and it's the thing in the barn that the hay goes on to dry it out. So first of all, it's always worth looking up what a Hey Mao is. Also, it's a cross-tuned A-E-A-E. And is there anything else? I don't know what else to say about it.
It's just a great tune that your dad wrote, and it's on Red Prairie Dawn, I believe. Yeah. I don't know if this is like a jam tune as much as some others. It's a fairly tough tune. Not too much more to say, but it's a great tune. It's on Red Prairie Dawn. And I just really like this tune, and it was exciting to learn it. So yeah, we'll treat you to a medley of those two excellent cross A tunes. Not yet video. All right, here we go. All right.
I remembered when you kicked it to me, what I was going to say about these two tunes specifically. So in the course of, setting our work plan for the year, Mareva was like, I want to learn Hey Mao. And I was like, okay, great. But do you know Leg Shy? And she was like, no, I don't know that. And so I pulled a true Garry Harrison and was like, well, you got to learn the traditional tune before you learn the original tune. Because Leg Shy has a lot of things that I feel like whatever in some way are referential, or at least some bowings that you learn first in Leg Shy, and then you apply them to Hey Mao, and they're both very much, I can't wait. I mean, we got into it in our lessons, and in our time together spent learning, but there's just something in those tunes that are like the kernel of them are very related. And so it started out, we set out to learn Hey Mao, and then Leg Shy got prequeled. There was a prequel.
Exactly, right. You were like, we cannot do Hey Mao without learning Leg Shy.
Exactly.
Which I was happy to learn. It was a great bit of like bowing homework to do. Yeah. It really worked well for that too. Yeah, like an exercise almost. And it's a great tune in and of itself. But it really teaches you the bowing that you need for Hey Mao. It comes in handy. I'll say that. So I think, okay, next we have for you a tune that's going to be more familiar to your ears. So this is a version of Rye Whiskey from Harvey Pappy Taylor. And I really fell in love with just the particular way that Pappy plays it in the source recording on the Dear Old Illinois CD. I was also really struck by like the guitarist who accompanies him, Mike Wilson. So both of them completely, it just like hit me. They play together on a lot of the field recordings that were collected, that are on the collection and also not. And they just had this different kind of like snappy sound, like different than most versions of like Rye Whiskey or Drunkard's Hiccups that I've heard, that we wanted to kind of pay homage to in our rendition. So we actually originally started to arrange it with words, and we may still do that one day. But interestingly enough, Pappy does it as an instrumental, and he would apparently play a lot of songs with instrumentals on his fiddle. Like we were going through some like field recordings of that aren't like on the collection. And there's like, and there's actually a couple other examples of this. Like I think he does Lone Prairie just as like an instrumental, that's on the collection. But he'll do like ballads just as like solo fiddle tunes, or he'll just play songs on his fiddle. So we wanted to just pay homage to that with this version. So here is Harvey Pappy Taylor's Rye Whiskey. Yeah. Did you want to say anything about that one, by the way, Jenna?
I just love all those four chords. I mean, that's, I think, and Mike Wilson in general, it was just, we have a lot of home recordings with Pappy playing fiddle and Mike Wilson playing guitar, and his really strong, like, rhythmic style and just his chord choices and everything, I think, are really, they're very much the, like, mantra of, I would say, like, John Bishop, who was the longtime fiddler for the Indian Creek Delta Boys, and, you know, Andy Gribble, our, you know, friend in St. Louis, who, you know, we play a lot with, you know, or we would like to under circumstances. But yeah, I would think just those chords that you just heard are, like, very distinctive of, like, Illinois fiddle guitar duos, I would say.
Yeah, I remember, like, hearing a few recordings of them and being like, did Bish know Mike Wilson? Were they acquainted? I know that sound. Yeah. Really, like, striking sound they have, tight sound. And just, like, interesting how much faster they play that than you usually hear. So yeah, do you want to talk about this last number we have to share?
Sure. This is, so I mentioned in the interview, the Dear Old Illinois collection is really two collections, the Harrison side, which is instrumental, and the McIntosh side, which is largely vocal and ballad singing. And so this is a song that comes from the McIntosh collection. And I learned a lot about just this song from, you know, the home singing and home recordings of Joe Burgess and my dad, who are the co-authors of the Dear Old Illinois collection. And Joe is, like, a fantastic singer and part of the dance community in Bloomington, Indiana. And so I kind of got the first ideas of this song from Joe and from her singing. And then Mareva, I kind of taught what an idea of what I thought the song was. And I had some harmony parts, like, in mind, but then I feel like when Mareva and I put it together, it was very much like a collaboration in that way, that she brought a little more to it, and we made a strong, like, duo version of the song. So I'm excited. This is, as far as I know, the first public viewing, or the official release of I Hear the Low Wind Sweeping, this song.
Yeah, Eleanor Gibson. There's, like, a couple of her songs that we really liked, and a couple songs of hers that we worked on this year. This is the one that we're going to share, but she's a great singer.
She is also, for anybody who has the Pride of America, the new Mules album that my dad and I and Smith and Andy Gribble and Abby Layden recorded in 2009. This is the same source ballad singer for Molly Bond for the version that we do, or you know, in the Dear Old Illinois collection, Eleanor Gibson is credited with both Molly Bond and this song that you're about to hear.
Heavy hitter. Yeah, okay. Here is I Hear the Low Wind Sweeping.
Where my dear mother's sleeping.
loved ones I have dying, we must in heaven meet. Oh yes, I'll meet you, Mother, on that eternal shore, and there we'll live together where parting is no more. What joy there was in heaven when Mother robed in white met there her angel children. Oh, what a glorious sight! They must have sang in glory and shouted round the throne, those blessed angel children, to welcome Mother home. I hear the low wind sweeping through every bush and tree, where my dear mother's sleeping, away from home and me, away from home and loved ones. She will return no more. She has gone to live with Jesus on that eternal shore.
Yay! Thank you. I can see some people clapping. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it's exciting to share that. We've been holding that one close to the chest for a while. Ooh.
Thanks for all the comments in the chat too. That's very, very
Yeah.
sweet. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for watching and commenting and coming. And we will, again, we'll share this as a recording afterwards. So yeah, if you want to learn more just about the traditional music of downstate Illinois, you can buy the Dear Old Illinois book and CD at the Old Town School Music Store online. I believe they're available now. I believe that is the case.
They are. I will share the links in the event page, like so that they're there today.
Yeah, I think Jay's sharing them in the Facebook chat. I'll just copy them into the chat right here now for everyone to look at them. And then yeah, we'll share them everywhere. They'll be shared everywhere. Yeah, and do you want to do some thank yous, Jenna?
Sure, there are many. Thank you, the Illinois Arts Council Association, which is the entire reason this whole event can be free and open to the public, and totally free without any donations or anything. You know, their support and their, you know, this program has been a truly incredible experience. So thank you to them. Thank you to everybody who helped promote this event, Lynn Guerin and my mom, Gay Harrison, who are both fabulous musicians themselves and huge movers and shakers in the old time community. Thank you to Cliff Harrison for being man on the street, phone a friend, lifeline within this event. Thank you, as I mentioned, my husband, Smith Koester, who was playing the banjo in the band, for playing and for also volunteering his space at Barnstorm Mastering for the recording. And Jade Rogers for everything, for playing on the in the band with us and for helping us run tech and for everything in between. And to Jane Barb Productions, who was responsible for filming, editing, getting all the high def, high quality video ready for you to see today. They were really great to work with, and I know they've done a lot of stuff for the Hideout. They were just super, and we really thank them for working with us.
Yes, I'm so glad we got to work with them because it was truly enough work just to do the rest of putting the event together, much less, you know, if we had to be focusing on producing the video ourselves. It was really great to work with them. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and yeah, just thank you all again. I think that's all she wrote.
Yeah, I think you'll share the final video in the event page. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can have it forever and ever.
Yes, it'll be publicly available for sure.
Great.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.